Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Darren from Komprise. I am here with two gurus from Komprise, and I'm just going to put us over into everyone's screen. We can say hi. Let's do that. Good morning. I've got Paul Chen. I've got Benjamin Henry, product management or field CTO, and you guys work, day to day with customers, and really excited to share with you some new things that are coming out and have come out in Komprise 5.1, 5.2, some of the 5 release of Komprise. So, guys, hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Nice meeting you. I'm Paul Chen.
All right. So, really quick on the just housekeeping. For those of you who are newer to this system, you can ask questions on the sidebar here. You can click into full screen mode. You can update your screen settings to make sure everything's coming in clear. And we'd like to make these really interactive. So put in some questions. We'll get to them as we go along and towards the end as well. There's also a few attachments there. If you want to learn more about Komprise Elastic Data Migration, you can go and grab those and read along. All right, so let's jump in. Our agenda, want to provide a quick overview of what's new in our latest release and really focus today on the Elastic Data Migration area of the Komprise Intelligent Data Management platform. We're going to spend a lot of time in demonstrations. But just to kind of stay in PowerPoint for a quick introduction, I know there are some folks on the call who are newer to Komprise. This may be really a new company, a new product you haven't heard of, as well as we have a lot of our existing customers on the call. So really quickly, Komprise is really setting out to build a platform to manage unstructured data. And that's everything from giving you the visibility. We've always talked about being analysis first. Really, we say know first, then move smart. So getting visibility to analyze, search, tag, execute data across silos, mobility. So whatever your data movement use case happens to be, tier, copy, confine, and we're going to talk about migration a lot today. And then ultimately, we're seeing a lot of opportunity to harness that data, right? Those the piles of file and object data that's growing and growing, how to actually turn that into value. And we're doing some really interesting things around smart data workflows and being able to ultimately feed subsets of data to the right place at the right time. So quick introduction to Komprise. Now let's go into what's new. So a few weeks ago, we announced what we called really as a concept, this ability to have storage insights. So a single interface to really get visibility across data and storage metrics. And you can see some of the kinds of things you can get answered in this new interface, which we're going to show you. And we've had really good response from customers. It's really becoming more of a destination in the data storage area of the product. To be able to, as you see on the screen, choose from custom columns, drag and drop those into your view. A lot of personalized settings you can do here, and then be able to take action on data, as well as we've introduced a number of pre-built reports that are from you, right? Getting your feedback. What are the kinds of things that would be interesting for you to have available to you? A new one that we're seeing a lot of interest in is potential duplicates. We have an orphan data report, a showback report. So these are really powerful ways to really get insight and then share them with others in your organization. So Paul, why don't we flip over into a demo? But Ben, I know you've been working with a lot of customers. Anything you'd want to add to this from what you've seen from the initial adoption?
Yeah, if we can go back one slide, I want to just recall that for a minute because I need to just call out the engineering, product management, UI teams that put this together. This is something that has greatly reduced the time it takes to set up migrations or even just have some basic knowledge about your environment, about your storage, what's happening, what's going on. Do I have exponential growth? Do I have exponential modifications going on? But again, I'm going to go back to migrations. There's over 15 columns built in here that already get me 50 to 60% of what I need to set up a successful migration from one UI. I go in here, I add the columns, and then at the top, I can export this report and then plug in the rest of what I need to pre-stage all my migrations. Previously, this was not available in the UI. You had to go and grab this from 4, 5, 6 different locations. Now it's a single pane of glass, export, I'm up and running in 5 minutes. So I really have enjoyed demonstrating this with customers, showing customers how to leverage this. And on my own, helping customers pre-stage migrations. It's been invaluable.
All right. So Paul, do you want to just give us a quick overview before we jump into the data migration topic?
Absolutely. I'm going to steal the screen now. This is a live demo, and this is an interface that probably most of you are familiar with. This is the interface for our 4.10 release on what you know as the Shares tab. This is the tab you go to point Komprise to the storage that you want Komprise to manage. And there's a nice little wizard. You can choose which storage you've got added to Komprise. And once you've added it, you can see your file servers over on the left. You can navigate to different file servers and see the shares on each particular server. There is some information here about each particular share, so you can see how much data is on the share, and if we have tiered any data, how much has been tiered. You can find out the status of analysis, when it was started, how much data has been seen, etc. So there's some information that you get here. But what I'm now going to show you is the similar interface that Darren and Ben have introduced as data stores. The data stores tab in our 5.x line replaces the shares tab. So for those of you who haven't seen it yet, here's the reveal. We're now in the 5.x product demo. This is a live demo. We have updated the user interface a bit. So you'll notice, first of all, that the menu bar is a little bit lighter in treatment, lets you focus more on the content on the page. The second thing you'll notice, of course, is that we're now making full use of the browser window. So those of you who have large monitors can now take advantage of that extra space because, as Benjamin mentioned, there are multiple columns now available to you to get more insights into your data. Now, the basic layout of the page is the same. There is, of course, a wizard that allows you to choose the storage that you want Komprise to manage, similar as before. Once you've added the storage, you can navigate through your file servers over on the left pane. In fact, now we are displaying clusters as a first-rate object in the hierarchies. So now you can see your Isilon clusters, your NetApp 9 clusters. Within your Isilons, you can see your access zones. Within your NetApp 9s, you can see your SVMs. So this is a great way to see the organization of your storage. Then when you dive into any particular cluster or access zone or cluster or SVM, you get information about the shares on each particular file server. So you can again see the analysis. Oh, we're between analysis, but this is how much was scanned in the last analysis crawl. You can see if that particular share is involved in any transfer. Right now, this share is in a move transfer. We're tiering data off this share. The black icon indicates we're between iterations, between transfers. When it's active, it's blue. So you get a very nice visual indication of what's happening on any particular share. We still have the same data bar, but a little bit more information. We're now showing the free space available on that share, as well as the data on the share, the size, and the amount of data that comprises tiered off, the move data. These are the basic columns that you see when you first enter data stores. But as Benjamin mentioned, and as Darren showed in the slide, we now have over 25 columns that you can choose from. It's a simple drag and drop interface. The right side shows the columns that you are currently displaying. I want to pick a few to show you some new things that we've added. So here's a column that's called department. I'll slot it in near the left side of the page. And then I want to look at these 4 new columns: move data percent, or modified data, sorry, new data percent, data growth, and cold data. And of course, I can rearrange these any way I like on the right side. When I click save, my view now changes. I'm now viewing the columns that I've customized. These columns are saved per user. So now I've logged in. Next time I log in, I see these same columns again. If Darren were to log in, he would see the columns that he had configured. If Ben comes in, Ben will see the columns he's interested in. So you can customize these per user. And in fact, you can customize them depending on the phase of data transfers that you're dealing with. When you're dealing with migrations, you may be interested in certain columns, as Ben mentioned, and I'll show those. When you're doing strictly analysis, you may not be interested in seeing the move data or how much transfers are going on. So you can customize the columns over time as well to suit what you are particularly focused on. This again gives you more information. As Benjamin mentioned, you can get a lot of information to help set up your migrations. The best way to do that is do an export. So what you'll do is you'll set up your filters just the way you want them. So you can filter the storage just to show, for example, if I'm interested in my VNXs, because I'm going to be migrating off of them. And suppose I'm going to get them onto this nice new NetApp 9. Well, maybe I want to stay on the EMC line. I'll migrate them to Isilon. So I only care about these data stores right now. And I can then open up and look at the shares. And now when I generate a CSV report, I will get exactly this view in that CSV. So it's a tailored report based on the view that you've customized. Quick thing now on these additional columns. These new columns that I'm showing you show you the percentages of data that have either been modified or have been added, new, or have changed on the share, the growth, or is cold. So we're measuring the data that's incoming on each share. You can specify over what time period. So for example, for the growth, I want you to look, I want Komprise to look over the last 1 month, and therefore show me the growth on any particular data store over that 1 month. And in fact, I can also set alert thresholds, either by percent or absolute values. I can say, if any share grows over 20%, or if any share adds over 1,000 gigabytes, please let me know with an alert. And then I can filter on those alerts. And fortunately, nothing is growing that great this fast. But it's an easy way for me to find potential trouble spots in my data stores. Again, storage insights, giving me more knowledge about what I've got before I start to move them.
Paul, on the topic of those alerts, can you tell me a little bit how that alert will be presented?
It'll be presented with an icon. So when you configure the alert, we give you a little harbinger of what that will show in the UI. So if there were any share whose percent data was more than 50%, you would get that alert. Let me just set this to something very low. Suppose it's 1% or 1 kilobyte. And then if I start to look at the growth, I can filter by alerts. Was it growth that I said? I don't remember now. Was it modified? I have to go back and look. It was modified, 1%. So let me look at the modified column, filter by alerts. Oh, I see the modified here is very, very low. In this demo, I've got some sample data. The modifieds are less than like 0.5%. So let me change that setting. And let's go down to 0.1%. Oh, it looks like it's only integers. So I can only modify up to 1% for growth. Let me do something very small like 2%. So now if I filter by growth, I see the growth is also less than 1%. So I'm sorry, I didn't preview the data very well ahead of time. But you can set alerts. For example, when the percentages exceed your threshold, you'll get that little orange icon. And when you filter, you'll see those across the board.
Hey, Paul, I look like I went back to the slides for a second, but we'll come back into demo mode.
Yes.
And talk through some of this. Good stuff. Thanks for giving us that context and kind of helping us understand, what's new at a high level. Let's switch gears and talk specifically about the migration area of the product. And there was a question also asking, hey, can you give us some context to, the migration, Elastic Data Migration? And I think you'll do that in the demonstration. But this could also help. I mean, first of all, we want people to understand, we have been really focused for a number of years, and in particular in the last, 12 months, really working on this area of the product line. We're seeing a lot of demand, a lot of data moving to the cloud, a lot of migration happening. So our focus is to build a next generation migration solution that provides that insight and then the high performance transfer engine, really to simplify and accelerate migrations. And so, on the analysis side, you can plan with insight. We're going to talk about something we call ACE, which is an assessment of a customer's environment. Ben, an area that's near and dear to you. Also, hyper transfer has really delivered, high-speed migration performance, especially in SMB, migrations with a lot of small files. And then ultimately, we're seeing a lot of use cases around data center consolidations, taking that down from, days and months, or months down into days. So this has been a big area of focus for Komprise. And I know, Ben, you've worked with a lot of our customers. Before we talk about ACE and what that means, do you want to just kind of give your take on Elastic Data Migration?
Yeah, I'll talk about Elastic and Hypertransfer together. So recently had a customer contact us and said, you know what, I have a site, We need to get out of the site as fast as possible. We found a file server that we were unaware of. We thought everything was back somewhere else as part of decommissioning the site. Someone said, hey, by the way, there's a Windows file server over here, and we need to move this data now. The site had been experiencing some issues with power, intermittent WAN connectivity. So what we did is we worked with them, got the shares all stood up, got them analyzed as fast as possible. We enabled hyper transfer as well as Elastic for SMB, and we drained all that data out of that site in one weekend, despite the WAN connectivity issues, despite it being a low speed, high latency circuit, power disruptions. All that data was out and over a weekend, and all the data was actually sent to another site with zero data loss. So we got everything out for them in time. It worked, all the parts together just did exactly what it was designed to do and more.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the assessment of customer environment. Where did this come from, and why is it important to migrations?
Yeah, not just migrations, but any data movement. So ACE, assessment of customer environment. What are we doing? We developed a tool that runs outside of Komprise. You can run it on Komprise servers, you can run it on non-Komprise servers. But what we're trying to do is help customers understand their topology under any bottlenecks that could get in the way of data movement. So I'll give you a use case. I have a customer that was trying to move small numbers of files, but very large files. And we knew we were going over a lower speed circuit, but they were spinning up a high speed 10 gig circuit. So when that was done, we started testing and we weren't getting the performance that we had expected. So in using ACE, we just kept working with their internal network teams and said, okay, here's a bottleneck over here somewhere. Here's the timing. Here's how long it takes to move this amount of data. Here's how long it takes to read that amount of data to and from source and target. And in that process, we helped identify 3 different bottlenecks. So there was a bottleneck at the firewall. There was a bottleneck at the router. There was a bottleneck at the firewall on the opposite side on the destination, because this is a WAN-based migration. So 3 different bottlenecks that no one was aware of, we found in about 45 minutes. Once that was done, we were actually able to leverage all 10 gigabits of that dedicated circuit and get that data flowing exactly as they wanted.
Great. Yeah, and we have two white papers on our website. One explains the performance gains with Komprise versus rsync on an NFS migration project, and one explains the performance gains with hypertransfer, which is 25 times faster than robocopy for SMB. So those are out on the website, and a lot of work continues to go on to make sure we're optimizing the whole experience. So let's talk about what's new, Paul. There's 3 use cases product management's really focused on. Do you want to kind of explain why, and then we'll just jump right into showing it? Maybe we can talk through some of the details along the way.
Certainly, but I do see there's a question about our performance, and I just want to address that very quickly. We did show on the slide that we have 25x greater performance than robocopy, and we have better performance for rsync as well. We have achieved those, of course, in a lab condition. So under lab environments where we've set everything up just right, we measure our peak performance. Customers' experience may vary, and that's exactly why we have that assessment of the customer environment. Every customer's environment is always different. They grow over time. They're organic. That ACE tool that Benjamin just talked about can help uncover certain issues that may arise. Benjamin has seen a wide array of them that can affect migration performance. So that's one way to help ensure that you get the peak performance from Komprise. The question also asks about multi-threaded copies like robocopy does. Absolutely. That's why we have. That's why we call it Elastic Data Migration. We introduced parallelism in the migration engine at multiple levels. For NFS, we actually wrote our own protocol stack that reduces some of the chatter and improves the thread-based parallelization of that particular stack. And then moving up in granularity, we've also got multiple observers. Those are our workhorse engines that do the actual data transfers. Multiple observers are now working in parallel, carving up the data that needs to be migrated. So that's what makes it elastic. As the data is there to be migrated, we can carve it up and elastically use multiple observers to help migrate that data. Now, if certain customers aren't seeing the advertised performance, definitely we can go in. It often takes some tuning to make sure that we make the best of the situation in the environment. And then the last part of the question is QoS, to make sure we don't overrun or flood the WAN links. We do have QoS capabilities. That may require a little tuning on our side as well, again, depending on what you've got going on in your environment. So let us know. We can work offline with those particular questions and that particular customer.
And Paul, in addition to QoS, we also offer throttling too.
Ben, go ahead.
No, I was saying, just to Paul, in addition to the QoS, we also offer throttling too.
Exactly.
The
Okay,
paper,
so let me.
the NFS paper is on the, actually, it's in one of the attachments. There's a little paper clip there. You can go and click through on that link to the website.
Thanks, Darren. So I will steal the screen again and start showing demonstrations of new migration use cases. So here again, I'm in my 5.x demo. I'm going to go over to the migration tab. Let me just give a preamble to the new use cases that we're supporting. We have been supporting customer migrations for years now. Excuse me. For most of those customers, the use case is primarily, I've got data on one file server and I need to get it over to a different file server. So in other words, make the destination an exact copy of the source. And for most use cases, that works just fine. But what we've heard over the past few years, that some customers have different types of migrations that they want us to support. We have been able to support them usually with a support engagement, but now we make it much more easy by presenting it right in the user interface. So if you have this kind of edge case migration that you need to do, we can present it to you. One of those migrations is called a preloaded migration. And what happens in that case is you may have decided to use a different tool. Maybe it's Robocopy or rsync. Maybe it's another hardware vendor-based tool to get the bulk of the data copied from A to B. So get that initial baseline copy over. But then you realize you need to do multiple copies over different iterations of time because you've still got end users using that source file system. So there's changes there that need to be brought over. And now you've either got to write your own script or you've got to manage it manually. And you quickly find that when you're doing tens or dozens of migrations, it's very tedious, it's very error prone, it's very manual. And then you decide to bring in Komprise because Komprise can do all of that automatically. We can now handle what's known as a preloaded migration. And now this demo that I've got here doesn't know about preloaded shares in its demo. So what I'll show you is a screenshot of a site that did. When you are adding a migration and you've picked a source, we will show you some user interface options now because we'll detect whether or not the destination you pick has data on it. So you've picked your source, you pick your destination, you want to go from A to B. B was preloaded with some other tool. We'll detect that and we'll tell you there's existing data detected on the destination. The reason this is a warning, we want to make sure that you actually picked the correct destination because if you start the migration, we're going to continue to make A look like B, and there's a potential for data loss if this is not the correct share. So this warning says, yes, this is the right share. I know there's data there. I meant for it to have data there, and you confirm this by typing it, and we log that. So in case later someone says, well, what happened with this share? I thought there was data there. We can show, yes, this user on this date and time said, I knew there was data there. Let's go. And we do the preloaded migration. So that allows you to now handle this new use case where you've sort of jump-started or bootstrapped your migration very easily with another tool, and then having Komprise pick up after that. Two other use cases that we have, and they're very related. Let me just pick a share now. Suppose I want to migrate this engineering share over to another storage server, maybe this QA share. We now have a new step in the migration wizard. By default, the standard type is chosen. And this is the type of migration that I mentioned earlier. Most migrations are make the destination an exact copy of the source. This is what we've been supporting all along. If this is the case that will work for you, you just click next and move on. But we now have under advanced this other option that we're calling keep latest version. And what this option allows you to do are two types of migrations that we call consolidation migration and warm cutover. Let me talk about consolidation migration. We had several customers come to us and say, we're consolidating either sites or hardware, and we want to make the destination B look like A, except there's A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. We're migrating all of these source file servers and shares onto a single destination. We want to merge them together. We make it very easy now with this keep latest version option. It enables a consolidation migration where you first copy the first source A, over to the destination B, and then you migrate A2 over to B, and then A3 and A4. And each time you migrate another source onto the same destination, we make sure to keep the latest versions of whatever files and directories appear on the destination. And in fact, the customers that have been asking often had the same directory structure across multiple file servers, and they wanted to merge them. So on the destination, it's the same directory structure, now with files merged in from multiple sources. We wanted to make sure the latest version of any file is maintained on that destination. And so now with a simple user interface button, you can now perform consolidation migrations using Komprise. The third new use case that we provide is now called a warm cutover, or in marketing terms, it's a zero downtime. And in this use case, excuse me, as you know, in the final iteration, when we're copying changes over from source to destination, the recommendation is that you put your source share in read-only mode for your end users. And you do that so that there are no more changes happening on the source. Komprise can sweep through, find all those last changes, copy them over to the migration destination, and then you're ready for cutover. Well, that works for a lot of migrations. You have a cutover window, usually on a weekend. You tell your end users, don't log in this weekend. We're going to be migrating the share from A to B. However, we've heard from some of our customers there are other use cases where certain sources cannot be made read-only. They've got either end users or, more commonly, applications that need to write their data whenever they need to write it. They cannot be locked out for any period of time. Great use case, medical applications. There are machines in hospitals that are writing patient data. There are patient care people who need to enter their patient notes 24/7. They could not lose access to the source share. So what we've done is we still recommend that you make the source share read-only in that final iteration, but we allow you to cut end users over to the destination during the final iteration. So during that final iteration, we're copying the last changes from the sources to the destination. Meanwhile, your patient caregivers, your machine applications could be IoT machines. You've got machines that are processing data 24/7, need to write the results. Log files get written 24/7. In media entertainment, there's often videos that have to come in at all times of the day, things like that. All these can continue to be written at all times of the day on the destination. So the cutover time can be very, very narrow. Just the amount of time to cut over the DNS or the IP for those end users, they start using the destination while we're doing the final iteration. So it's almost a zero time cutover. So this is a very interesting use case that a lot of customers have now perked up their ears and said, wow, I've been doing standard migrations, but now I can do a warm cutover. This is fantastic. And it'll help reduce that cutover time. That cutover window, which is so critical for end users, can now be minimized in these cases.
So, Paul, a couple of questions I've received in the last couple of months is, when can I reduce the number of resources I deploy? If I want to do migrations, I've got to set up observers, I've got to set up proxy servers, and sometimes multiple of. In addition to that, I'm also hearing that customers want to see a single pane of glass for file-based migrations, but also object migrations. Can you talk a little bit about what's coming up?
Yeah, in fact, so far everything I've talked about is present in the 5.x line. 5.1 is the current latest version. 5.2 is on the ways to come out soon. What we're about to release imminently is in development. We're going to be able to do SMB migrations without Windows proxies. Now, if you're familiar with our product deployment, for handling SMB, we need to deploy Windows proxy servers, which reside behind your firewall. They are Windows servers applications, and they help us do all the transfer information, especially the ACLs and permissions for SMB data. We are writing now our own SMB client stack on our observers, which are Linux-based, which are going to obviate the need for Windows proxies. So coming up soon, you'll be able to migrate SMB data without having to deploy Windows proxies. This will simplify the deployments, simplify the maintenance, reduce costs altogether.
So I'll just need to deploy observers, one machine, both protocols, done, right?
For migrations, yes. And then
Awesome.
the next step after that, for all transfers that Komprise can do, we're going to remove the need for Windows proxies so that customers on that future 5.x version will not need to deploy Windows proxies to do any kind of data management. We're removing that extra bit of deployment process completely.
Awesome.
Another feature that's coming, it's on the slide there. We currently manage object to object or file to file migration. We're going to add object to object migration. We do this already with our cloud data management director, but we're moving it into a single pane of glass on the current directors that our customers mostly have, so they can migrate objects to objects very easily, whether the objects are on-prem storage or in the cloud.
It's probably worth talking about for a second, Paul. So today we have two products. We have the HDM, hybrid data management, which does unstructured data for migrations as well as objects. And then we have CDM, cloud data management, which manages your cloud objects. Can you tell me a little bit more about what CDM does today as a standalone product?
Certainly. CDM was developed as a cloud-based product to manage customers' cloud-based data. So it's an entirely cloud-based deployment, nothing for the customer to deploy on their own premises, very easy for them. It's completely SaaS, and it does analyze and help them manage their cloud-based object storage. Over time, we've got customers who are more hybrid. They have objects that are not only in the cloud, but also on-prem. We started to improve the CDM product to be able to reach back into on-prem and manage that data as well. But it was clumsy because the cloud-based deployment was really meant for cloud-based storage. So now we're bringing all that capability into the directors that we have today so they can more easily manage a hybrid capabilities of on-prem and cloud-based storage at the same time.
So within CDM, if I'm on-prem and need to go to the cloud, if I'm in the cloud but need to bring my data back, or if I need to go between cloud vendors, can I migrate between those scenarios using CDM, and not just for comprised target data, but also just general purpose buckets and objects? Can I accomplish all of that?
Yes, absolutely. CDM was designed for any kind of cloud object storage, not just the data that Komprise may have tiered into object storage. So between clouds, cloud to on-prem, on-prem back to cloud, it can be done with CDM. Again, anything on-prem requires now a little more deployment from the customer side. They need to deploy some agent, the observer, on their premises to help manage the on-prem data.
Hey guys, also, some good questions coming in. Hey Ben.
Yeah, I was going to throw in one more question on CDM and then jump over to the questions for sure. And then Paul, if I have just general purpose buckets that I've created in the cloud, and that provider offers the ability to classify the storage, maybe one class of storage is high performance, one class of storage is lower performance. Can I move my objects around within those classes to get a better bang for my buck when it comes to hosting my data in object?
Yeah, absolutely. Komprise supports all storage tiers within all vendors that support that kind of or provide that kind of capability. So it's
Awesome.
very easy to manage your data, get the biggest bang for the buck, and again, metering it against the access times that you need.
Excellent.
Hey guys, before we dive into a few technical questions, there's some good ones coming in. I just want to do a quick review, and maybe Ben, because I know you're working with customers in each of these three use cases. So the first one Paul talked about and demonstrated is the zero downtime, quote unquote, warm cutover. Any guidance you would say here from some of the implementations you've worked on, Benjamin, on this area, things that people should know about?
For the warm cutover? Yeah, as Paul brought up, it's excellent for media and entertainment, for medical fields where you've got imagery just being dumped to shares and you cannot have downtime when you do your cutovers. Like Paul said, what you're going to do is you're simply going to set your source as read-only or take it offline so that the applications and users can't see it, immediately redirect them to the target so you have a quick blip on the radar. and then you can do your final iteration to copy those changes that may have occurred on the source over to your target and allow those applications that need to write data continuously. It'll just keep reoccurring. It's an excellent feature for those areas.
Awesome. And let's talk about consolidation migration. I know this one was something we'd actually done and worked with a customer on even before this release, and now it's more broadly available. Any guidance on this one?
Yeah, there's actually, I deal a lot with customers doing consolidations, but also breaking apart their shares. Sometimes they have one large share that has minimal control because it's all controlled by one set of ACLs, one set of share permissions. They want to break them out and go to 50, 60, 100 destination shares. Or they want to take 50, 60 shares saying, okay, these all belong to one department. I want to manage them together. Same thing, you can take them all and bring them into one share moving forward rather than managing 50, 60 different sets of permissions on the source side. Another excellent feature customers have been asking for, and it's here.
All right, last one before some of these questions, because they're starting to pile up. So we're giving you a chance, Paul, to catch your breath. Preloaded migration. What was the driver for this one, and where are you seeing most need for it?
Yeah, so this was a migration where somebody may have started to do a manual copy of their data or used another application or utility, and it just didn't work out for them. And this really the advantage really is when you're trying to do a WAN-based migration. Okay, I've got 50 terabytes I've got to move. I already accomplished 10. I don't want to start over and deal with this WAN link and recopy that 10 to get caught back up again. Can I leverage the data that I've already copied? And the answer now is yes, you can do that. In a standard-based migration, you can say, you know what, just pick up where we left off, use the existing data, and then copy everything else that I haven't copied yet. Another feature a lot of customers are already taking advantage of.
Awesome. All right, so let's get to a few questions here before we wrap up. And this is a recording. We'll make sure everyone gets it. There were some questions about that. Paul, do you want to pick which ones you want to start with? And Benjamin, you can chime in. Pick
Sure.
which ones you want.
Sure. There's a question about if you stop an ongoing iteration, a migration, and then you might want to, for some reason, delete or remove that migration job and then later recreate it with the same parameters, going again from A to B. Can the pre-existing data that was already copied to B be reused? Absolutely. And that's exactly what the preloaded use case is. If that data is already there, you let us know, and then we only copy changes that have gone over. And we make sure we don't delete anything that's on the existing B share already. So that's exactly a preloaded use case. Let's see. So the question is, if you upgrade from 4.10 to 5.x, can you remove the Windows proxies? You can if you're doing migrations only. So once we have the version that allows you to do SMB migrations without proxies, if you upgrade to that version, you won't need your proxies if you're doing migrations. However, if you are doing plan tiering or plan copies, we haven't yet gotten to the part where those still require Windows proxies. So until then, that'll be a future 5.x release. You'll still need Windows proxies for plan transfers.
Oh, I see a quick one here on just a 30-second or less response on the clarification of what the role is of the observer versus the proxy server today.
Today, the observer is really the workhorse. It does almost all the work. It does all the scanning, all the analysis, and for NFS, it does all the data transfers, including all the ACLs, permissions, owner bits, etc. For SMB, the observer again does all the scanning, all the analysis, and it moves all the data, but there's certain things that a Linux-based application, the observer, cannot perform on Windows servers. So that's what the Windows proxy really is. The observer tells the proxy, I need help to do these particular SMB commands. Can you do them for me? So you notice there is a hop in there. The observer has to tell the proxy to do something. The proxy sets the right information on the destination filer, the SMB, and then confirms back to the observer. So by removing the proxy, it's not only removing some of the deployment headaches for customers and the extra maintenance of those applications, it should also improve performance because now everything is being done directly by the observer to the storage.
Which ones do you guys want to pick next?
These are kind of long to read. Let's see. So for migration to Azure file shares, can we use Azure Data Box to bulk load the data and then use Komprise to do the continuous synchronization? Yes, we can. We have supported and Amazon, similar thing called Snowball, and Azure Data Box is very similar. It's essentially a piece of hardware that you bring into your site, you load your data on it, you send it back to Azure, and they upload it. And now you've preloaded your destination. And then we can also use that preloaded migration to continue the synchronization of the data.
Yeah, I mean, to further talk about that, Paul, I mean, you could certainly park one of the data boxes. I think they have something a little bit smaller than that. Copy the data to it, send it up to Azure, and then set up your migration job to say, okay, once the data is there, that could take a week to a month maybe to actually do that copy and send, and then set up a migration job to say, okay, let's use a preloaded migration and just copy into the changes. It work really, really well.
And I just asked you generally, Benjamin, and you work with a lot of customers, as I mentioned. Are there, just on the migration side, are you seeing any specific trends around, cloud migrations, cloud file migrations, on-prem to on-prem, or even cloud back to on-prem? Any kind of trends you're starting to see right now, or that might help people think about their own strategy?
Yeah, it's legacy storage is what I'm seeing, and where it goes is really a business decision. There is still a ton of getting my data to the cloud, but it's also the storage systems that have reached end of life. A couple big ones have hit end of life this year, so there's requirements to get off of those, so they maintain support, maintain consistency, maintain patches, and it seems to be a race to get that data off before the end of the year. And to those situations, I can only suggest planning. Look at what you need, look at where you're going, identify the bottlenecks, do a couple test migrations, and then once you have all of the bottlenecks out of the way, it will work efficiently. You will get the data off of them, and you will be able to accomplish your goals by the end of the year. And if there's any questions on how to set them up, or how to do the testing, or how to run ACE, by all means, reach out to your account team, reach out to customer success, reach out to me directly. I'd be more than glad to jump on a call and talk it through and help those customers get their data moving.
Awesome. Any final questions you want to take here, Paul? Anything we missed?
Yeah, I see two more. Let's just address them. Will SMB observers help with illegal characters when migrating data stores from edge sites where the characters were legal to a data center where perhaps the character is illegal? So we should dive more into that. Generally, our view of legal and illegal characters is based on the definitions of SMB and the protocol. So this question might be more about double byte character set support, triple byte character support versus single byte. We can take that offline. We have the person who asked, and we can follow up with that. So we'll do that. Does the copy, not migration, so this is a question about planned copies, still create the hidden .comprise folder on the source data set? When we do plan operations, we do a lot of housekeeping, and so we create a hidden comprise folder on the source to keep track of things. I actually don't know in the copy for this detail whether we're maintaining that on the destination. So let me follow up with that person later. Let me get back with engineering and find out that detail. And there's the last question.
It looks like the lifecycle management that's available, Paul. Do we now allow the tiering between, specifically in Azure, do we allow lifecycle management of the data between hot, cool, and archive tiers? Is that automatic now?
Yes, with Komprise, you can set up your Azure target to make use of Azure lifecycle rules. So in our user interface, you'll set up targets to tier data to whichever particular landing tier that you like, whether hot, cool, or archive, and then set up rules after X amount of days. The data should then move to the next tier, etc. And in fact, with the 5.1 release that just came out, we're also supporting the newest data tier that Azure came up with, which is cold. So then now they have hot, cool, cold, and archive. We support all of them, and you can set that all up in our user interface to make use of the Azure lifecycle rules.
So Paul, for example, if I had data that I'm archiving, but I'm concerned users may need that immediately, I could say, land all of my tiered data in Azure hot for, let's just say 30 days. And then after 30 days, okay, it's got me a little bit further along. Let's move it to the cool tier. So it's still readily available. And I can keep it there for 2 years. And then after 2 years, if it hasn't been touched again, I can move it then to the archive tier, which is currently the lowest cost within that platform, correct?
Absolutely. And those times are set by you. It's all available in the user interface, very straightforward, just moving from one tier to the next after X amount of time.
Okay, so I would go into my target, I would choose the default tier, and then I put the number of days for each tier beyond that, correct?
Exactly.
Awesome.
And we do the same support for Amazon as well. Amazon has a number of different tiers. You can do the same thing when setting up targets in Amazon S3 buckets.
Awesome.
There's a question about a data sheet. We have just published a new an overview on the Azure Learn site around how to set up and run Komprise Intelligent tiering for Azure. But this question's a little mixed on S3 and Azure and containers. So I'm not sure if that's a piece of documentation we have or if you understand the question more clearly, Paul.
What we can do, Darren, is we can actually send both pieces of documentation. We can send the one on AWS, but also on the Azure side as well.
Makes sense. Great, guys. Well, thanks everyone for all your questions. Great demonstrations and discussion, and we'll make sure this is shared out with everybody for sharing within your organization. If you have any questions or feedback, you can go to the demo page. You can go to contact us, as you say here, reach out to your account team, and love to make sure you're aware of what's new and taking advantage of all this new functionality. So, thanks, guys. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to our next discussion.
Thank you all.
Good.
Bye-bye.